questions or comments, discussion regarding our consent grouping? Okay, then can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes, Dr. Michaud?
Yes.
Mrs. DeBoer?
Yes.
Mr. Colley?
Yes.
Mrs. Tryon?
Yes.
Dr. Fausten?
Yes.
Mrs. Neinmeyer, yes.
All right, that brings us up to our informational items and superintendent's report. Roll from one to the next.
Okay, great. We just had the one resignation listed there, Mr. Schwander from Eastern High. That's the informational item. As far as the updates, there are a few. The first one I wanted to acknowledge is the Title IX 2024 regulations have been vacated based on a court order and a decision. So what that means is all of the school districts will be moving back to the 2020 regulations. They anticipate policy revisions coming from Truman, our policy provider, likely in the for the February board meeting. Just had a discussion with them recently, but they spend a lot of time going through and making sure that they understand what was vacated and all of the pieces, so that they give us policies that we can move forward with. So I do anticipate bringing those forward in February. Again, anticipating that they'll be finished at that time. So what that means is we are now using the 2020 effective, even though we don't have those policies. We're just reverting back to recognizing where we were at, and we aren't in any investigations right now, so it doesn't compromise any of the work that we're doing. So that's good, obviously, as well. So I appreciate the support and me going to the MASA Midwinter Conference. It was very good. There was a lot of good information. Some dealing with like my position directly as a superintendent, but certainly there was some learning around board communication and some of the strategies that were used in some other school districts. A lot of learning around AI, some really cool tools out there, and they're changing on a daily basis or every minute, however you want to put it. But really some really great tools, some legislative updates. There's been a lot of that, and most of it's what didn't happen and why things didn't happen and so on. It's been very intriguing to watch it all. Also went to a session on using your district assets. That was interesting. And then a session on legal updates, which there's always employment changes and things like that. And this year certainly has not been different. There's lots of changes there. And then one of the real important ones that we've actually seen now, and this is a series in the fall, a gentleman by the name of Matt Johnson was there. He has an organization called On Target Living, but he talks about how to take care of yourself, doing that through the mental side, through the physical side, and through the nutritional side. And so some really practical things. Maybe sounds a little goofy, but it really was good, and it's something that I think that could be good for everybody. So that was the conference. Today we had a PD day. By all accounts, we had a lot of good energy. It felt nice. We had everybody started out today. We had basically all of our buildings came together here at the Fine Arts Center. So not just our teachers, but our office staff, parapros were invited. Just everybody that worked within the building, and our transportation department as well. And so we had close to 1,000 people at the Fine Arts Center. So it was a great start. Everybody came in. We encouraged them to carpool, because obviously those single riders, there's not enough parking spots. And then we gave raffle tickets accordingly, how people got there. If they carpooled, they got 2. If they came individually, they got 1, and those kinds of things. And then we did some raffles throughout. But everybody also received one of these lanyards that we spent some time in designing. And I would just kind of work through this. So each of the school logos is on here. The goal is to have our employees wear these. Now, what we really want them to wear is their school IDs. That's one of the things at the beginning of the year that we said you need to do that, so that students know that you're supposed to be there, because not every student knows every staff member. So we put that on there, in hopes that people would utilize those. And we also have on here Forest Hills School District, and really emphasize that even though we are all Hawks, Huskies, and Rangers, we are all one Forest Hills, and really the emphasis around that we are one school district. And then also Relationships Matter is on here as well. So that was one of our core pieces as far as Tier 1. All students should be able to come to school and know that they are important, and know that there's going to be interactions with our adults and so on. So we did a lot of work around that. A lot of credit goes Kimball, our Director of Security, who really worked to pull a lot of this together. And I was really glad he showed up, that I didn't irritate him so much that he didn't show up this morning, but he's done a great job in making all of that come together. We had a number of people, administrators that helped during the day as far as presenting. What we did is we emphasized the standard response protocols, which are the 5 actions. And again, it goes back to some of the documents that we updated and put into the teachers' classrooms. The different actions, the hold, the secure, the lockdown, the evacuate and shelter. Those are all the key words and key actions that we were emphasizing under these standard response protocols. So the goal was to be consistent and deliver a consistent message, and I think we did that very well through video, through discussion, through direct instruction to talk like a classroom teacher. So that went very well. Again, we had a number of raffles that really encouraged people as well. The second half of the morning, because we had a little break and a little bit of fun, and then the second half we spent time with our mental health liaisons, and they spoke to some of the proactive things that can be done when you're interacting with students and of course staff, and then also some of the responsive things, because oftentimes as a classroom teacher things don't go well and you can no longer handle a student in the classroom, or somebody says something so egregious that it goes outside of a classroom teacher's responsibility and it goes to the office. They don't always know what happens, and so we talked a lot about, or they talked a lot about what happens once they go to the office, the social worker, that they have a screener, and then if the screener indicates that there's some cause for concerns, then they would do a full BTM, which is the review to see if they're a threat to themselves or others, and then there's actions that take place there. So there was a lot of conversation around that, and there were some strategies around, how to make relationships with kids. We really emphasized the relationship piece a lot. Everybody got a box lunch as they went off, and again, there was a lot of positive interactions, and people left. Basically, our K-6 went back to the buildings to, as I mentioned at the curriculum committee meeting, and they did the trails. Trails will be the tier 1. Like I said before, it was just a responsive with some of our staff doing pieces, but that'll be our tier 1 for our PBIS in the elementary. So we're very excited about that. That gives access to all the materials. You had to undergo the training. And Scott's not here, but he and his department did some work because it was Martin Luther King Day, and those that do the trails didn't want to do training on this day. So we had to really do some work to get that to happen. So we really appreciate that. And then our secondary group, basically our middle schools and high schools, primarily went to the high schools, worked together. Again, the SROs being great partners and protectors and relationship builders in our district. They too were there, and they helped with the discussions. There was a lot of scenarios that were completed. Like there was 5 different scenarios that were created for them that Mr. Kimball put forward, and so again we had a consistent practice. Literally went into classrooms, talked about those scenarios. People acted out what they would do if, and some of the little things and some of the things that aren't good at all, and they actually did the practices and what their actions would be, and so on. And so from that helps people think through some things, and think of things that they've never thought about. And also I was actually I went to each of the different sites, but in the eastern, the one teacher that was responsible for the classroom, because the rest were kids, she was talking about how even though we were doing this drill, like just the emotions that kind of changed, like her actions, during it. She didn't think about it, and then as she was reflecting on it. So that's the type of stuff that we need to do, so that again, if there's that time that we need to respond, that we can respond in ways that are empowering and can really get a positive result. So we talked a lot about that there's stats, and then there's things that aren't necessarily kept track of. Yes, there are some stats that show that I think there was 67 school shootings that were averted, but ultimately there's a whole lot more that we never know about, because relationships are built, and somebody makes a referral, somebody says something when they hear things. But we also talked about some of the progressions that these bad actors have as they go, and there's oftentimes signs for up to 9 months. And again, just talked about what some of those things were, and really tried to empower our staff also around the run, hide, fight strategies that some have learned a little bit about. And again, that's part of what we were practicing in the afternoon time. So we have a survey that was out there, and we've already seen some of the responses, and by and large they were very, very positive, and we're really looking forward to continuing our journey around safety. Again, we have very safe schools, and we will get better every single day because that's just the work that we do, and things continue to evolve. So I did want to share that about the PD Day. So any questions about the PD Day before we move on to some of the others? Okay. All right. And then at the end of the year, the legislative session, ultimately there were 9 bills that I would share with you. There were 9 bills that weren't sent on to the governor. A real big one was House Bill 6058, which impacted PA 152. I'm not sure whether that will be signed or if it will. There's a lot of legal review that's happening. There's a lot that is being learned about all of that as well. Overall, that's the bill that if it passed the way that it was written, it would be between $85 and $100 per student. Basically, would be the cost, and we would be getting no additional funds for this fiscal year. And then the following year, there also was some pieces in there that would be basically at least a 3% increase. The other measure that they use, and I can't remember the acronym right now, it doesn't even exist. And so that's one of the parts of the legal review is they were trying to compare to something that doesn't exist. So there were some real problems in the legislative process that's really being hammered out. We had mentioned around the power school issue that many school districts across the nation had happen. Again, unfortunately, we weren't impacted by that. We were impacted by the positive actions of Power School with some of the patches and some of the updates that they did for all of us. So that happened. Bottom line, there was some geofencing that really protected our data and those that were protected. Geofencing was important for that because ultimately this was outside of the United States. Therefore, it kept out the bad actors. Those that didn't have that geofencing had a different result. So the CREC, which is financial update, was very positive. That comes out in January, and that kind of kicks off the financial the financial projections that create the budget. We always like to have the budget in June. Sometimes we get that, sometimes we don't. State fiscal year being in October and ours starting July 1, causes some problems. Everything that I've heard so far is that we probably won't have our numbers by June, which is very difficult, but we'll continue to push, and all of our associations will continue to push that as well. But the projections are a positive, not in a humongous way, but from what the previous projections were as far as the revenue coming into the state of Michigan is higher, and so that definitely is good. So we are hoping that we can get an increase in the school aid fund or school aid payments for this next school year. So we did just get some ORS guidance, Office of Retirement Services, so that 3% that has been talked about to give our employees back. We finally were told that at the end of February, or towards the end of February, we will actually get the money, which is what all districts have been waiting. Most districts have been waiting for, to turn around and give that money back to employees. So we're waiting more guidance on that, but we are encouraged that hopefully in the spring we'll be able to start giving back. We recognize that the fiscal year is going to be October. It'll be the state's fiscal year, not the school fiscal year. So that will give us an opportunity to pay back all of those employees that are in that retirement system. So it'd be people basically, I don't know how many would have to be 20 years or more. They had to make a decision way back. So that 3% would get reimbursed back to them. So basically it's money coming in, money that's going right back out, but it is going to our employees, so that would be a definite benefit. And then after October 1, 2025, there will be no 3% taken out anymore. So that will be a blessing for school personnel for sure. So I would just recognize minus 20 degrees as that magic number that Mallory doesn't want to hear about. But oh yeah, sorry. Oh, my mic's in. So, but no, minus 20 degrees sustained over time is the and with wind chill is the temperature that we primarily 7 minutes ago that other superintendents are on, so after I get done with the meeting, I'll find out from that weather call what the projections are going to be as we go through the night